Hey everybody, welcome back to Event About It, the Dynamic Dialogue After Show. I'm your host, Megan Martin, and I'm here today with Rachel Kopczyk. And let's get right into it. She's flipping the script and interviewing me about all things Event About It and what we're doing here. So Rachel, take it away.
Megan and I are working together, and I'm the mixer producer helping her behind the scenes with the Event About It podcast. And it's really fun because we both work in the event space. And if you don't know who Megan Martin is, I want to just refresh your memory if you do and brag about her a little bit because she deserves her flowers and her kudos. I should have given you one of those. What did we call it in the segment?
The hat's off.
The hat's off. I'm going to give you a hat now. Obviously,
Okay.
maybe that was like too obvious. I think I was like, of course, Megan Martin. Like, yeah, but
Oh, well, thank you.
Here's your hat, my darling, as the kids say, giving you your flowers. But Megan Martin is an expert at one thing, connecting humans. With a background spanning decades in marketing, event design, and community building, Megan has the keen ability to unlock business opportunities with actionable, we love that, data-backed, we also love that, insights. She is the gatherer of people, a connector of data and ideas. Megan is an award-winning speaker. She has a lot of awards, everybody. She has way more than I do, which is zero. Megan is an award-winning speaker and innovative thinker. She's a former affiliate faculty member at MSU Denver, a certified meeting professional and digital event strategist. In her free time, Megan loves to be outside exploring nature and enjoying time at home cooking and baking with her partner and rescue dogs. Megan, you've done so much in your career.
I have done a lot. Yeah.
It's
in
not
my brain,
over.
I don't think I've done a lot, but then when I actually sit down and write it on paper, or like have to update LinkedIn and go scroll through all the things, it is actually a lot.
Yeah. And that's led you to the Event About It podcast.
It has.
Why now? Why this podcast? Tell everybody.
One, I've always been a curious thinker. I kind of embrace the fact that I'm weird. I think weirdly, I think differently. Like I have a sign in my office that says weird is a side effect of awesome. My phone background, it says stay weird. And that has just made me really curious, and my career has followed that. So I started out working at a convention center, loved being on the, side of actually helping people produce events, learning the industry, boots on the ground, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, doing conferences every day.
Oh my God.
Then went into association space, went into corporate, then started working in tech startups in the event tech space, learning the sales side of things. So that kind of got me into the business, looking at data, looking at sales numbers. How do we leverage these events? Why are we doing stuff to do stuff? And then now kind of back into the event agency, data analytics, leaning into my own consulting company because I have such a well-rounded understanding now, having worked all these different jobs at the very different sides of the industry. And my brain really does connect dots. And most of the reading and research that I'm doing every day is not even about events. I'm reading about marketing. I read about retail. I read a lot about B2C programs, like how are we marketing consumer shows? And all of that is applicable to what we do. And that's the only way my brain really knows how to think, is like connecting the dots. And how do we leverage what consumers are doing in retail sales and retail marketing? As more and more of that gets blurred, like it's no longer B2B and B2C. There's so much overlap that people don't necessarily think. They overlook it and they're like, well, we're in this space. Well, what if we took a nugget from over here and just tried it? And that's kind of what I want Event About It to be. Is one, we also just love telling crazy stories. Like crazy shit happens at events every day. We learn so much from the mistakes and heartache that go into these events, but nobody talks about that. We all, as planners, we're perfectionists and we want everyone to see the perfect side. And there weren't mice running across the stage or in the staff room. I wasn't awake until 2:00 in the morning rewriting show flows because the internet went down, or the executive at midnight was like, oh, I want to change everything. Here's my new slides, right? We don't talk about that. We just say like, look at the beautiful thing we produce. But no one really learns a lot from that. And we learn a lot from the stuff that doesn't go right and how we overcame that. And I want to spotlight that more. I also, like, as the internet gets messier, AI is making the internet messier. eyes are all on events right now, because the only thing we are going to be able to distinguish real from AI is when we see it with our own eyes. And that's only in person. And
Yep.
one of the only places to do that is at events. And the narrative of our society is just kind of changing. And so events are being leveraged more and more, but they have to be leveraged in the right way. So we were talking about, in the Event About It segment, where anyone can do a podcast, anybody can put up a YouTube channel, but to do it well and to do it right. Everyone thinks they're a party planner. Everyone thinks I can do events. I planned my sister's birthday party. I did the bachelorette. I know how to do events. I could totally do it. Okay, tell
No,
me how to do an event that grows 5x for your business. Tell me how you leverage a trade show booth to, do 100% in pipeline growth in a quarter. Not everyone can do that. So
no,
we
that's
have to
when they
start.
look at you like, huh? 5x
Right.
what? I don't know what that
Exactly.
means. Yeah.
And that's the way we have to be talking about events now. And there's not a lot of people talking in that way. And that's the future. And if we don't want to be called party planners anymore, that's the way we have to show up. And if we want a seat at the table, we got it during COVID. And then we showed up with how many registrants we have. Okay, great. Like, are they the right people? What are they doing for the business? That's what CEOs, CMOs, that's what matters really at the end of the day in events. I love the design. I love the feel goods. Like, that's all part of it. But to do it well and to do events well, we have to narrate the qualitative and quantitative side of the business impact that we're having, while we're also designing beautiful events that make people feel good and come back. It's such an art and science, and we need to talk more about that. They're talking in silos, and event-led growth is huge. It's going to be more important in the future as more events are talking about it, businesses are talking about it. And so that's what I want. I want to have fun. Our industry is way too stuffy. We take ourselves way too seriously. I just want to have a little fun and talk about how we leverage it for business, because that's why we do this at the end of the day.
Talk to us a little bit about event-led growth. How do we do that with this space? What is your number one tip for anybody that wants to put a booth in, that wants to just send a bunch of their employees to attend an event, and even from the other side, from the planner side? Like, how do you offer event-led growth?
Yeah, the first thing, you have to really even understand the why. Like, at some point I'm going to have my mom on the podcast, because she goes to events all the time. It's like, the text messages I get when she's at events are my absolute favorites. Maybe we'll have to have a whole segment like text for mom or something and get
Yes.
her on. But she probably would tell you I asked a lot of why questions when I was a kid. Like, if I don't understand something, I need to understand it. And I just want to know why we're doing it, because, like, I don't want to waste time. Like, I want to be efficient with stuff. Like, why are we doing this? Just help me understand. Like, if there's a reason, I'm happy to go along. If we're just doing stuff to do stuff, like, yeah, like, count me out. I'm not here for it. And so I think understanding your audience and why you're doing it. So if you're going to a trade show, like, is that the right trade show? Is that the right buyers? Is your ICP there? What products are they already looking at? So that's where a lot of this data strategy comes in. Is we can't just look at event stuff alone. Like, that's when event people need to go to marketing and say, okay, we're going to this trade show. What sort of products do we need to put in front of this audience? What white papers are they downloading off the website? What social is resonating with this team? And then we design experiences and booth activations or whatever it is that actually fit that ICP. So then they're more likely to buy or be interested or tell their friends, which help the business grow at the end of the day. The place to start is, you're not going to do all the things. So I just took an event-led growth masterclass. I'm going to do a review about it and post it in the next couple of days. But the one thing that kind of irked me a little bit about this, look, it's their masterclass. They can write whatever they want. They produced it. They can do it. Is they talked about these massive event portfolios where you have trade show booths, you have webinars, you also have these executive dinners, you also are co-sponsoring with your partners, you're doing side receptions at these big events. And if you're starting out really leaning into event-led growth, you can't do all of it. So just start with a couple. Get 2 events really dialed in. Your 2 biggest trade shows, like, get those dialed in, moving, showing those ROI, get the data so clean. and then add in some webinars and
Mhm.
then add in an executive dinner. Like, you don't have to jump in and immediately be like, we're going to do 100 events this year. Like, maybe we're going to do 5 events and we're going to do them really, really well and see how they're working, see what resonates, and then maybe we'll undo some and add more. Or maybe they all went well and then we're going to do 10 next year. Like, start small, get really, really good, and then start adding. Because if you try to be everything to everyone, it's never going to work.
No, it sounds a little bit to me like it's sort of all of the pieces of the puzzle have to work together if you want to be
Yes.
successful creating event-led growth. You have to have a relationship with the association or the event planner and make sure you're getting that information. And are
Yep.
they leveraging that information for their people? Are they sharing it or are they keeping it under lock and key, which I know a lot of people do because they don't want people to know how many people actually came and oh, it was
Yep.
8,000. No, it was, nearly 8,000. Okay, so it was 7,998 people. Okay, well, who are those people? How
Right.
many days did they stay? Where, and you can track that with the what is it, the RFID on the badges,
Yeah.
right? To see where people are going and the convention centers and know what they're doing. I mean, it's all together. And
Yes.
I know you said something about the internet and the AI, but I see that as an opportunity for people to use AI to
Yeah.
pull that information and give it to the people or do it yourself and take that information and create an AI tool to help you know what to do and where to go. I mean, it can be used for good, to make that even more profitable for you.
Yeah, I think this is the piece planners have been struggling with for a little while. That I'm excited the conversation is finally getting there and the technology is also catching up. Like, there's tons of Power BI tools, so business intelligence tools that leverage AI where you can dump all of this data. Your average planner, myself included, there's so many nuances to
Yeah.
using a BI tool. Like, you kind of almost need a PhD in statistics or some
God.
of that to like do it well. And I see some of these CMOs, like there was a viral post about her event dashboards go on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago. But in there, she said, we built all of these on this platform with our business operations team. Well, not everyone has a business operations team. Not everyone has a marketing ops team. Not
Mhm.
everybody has that. Now, shameless plug, I do work with a company that is an event data aggregator that does all of the same things a Power BI tool would do specifically for events. And I'm excited to see now people are starting to have that conversation, realize that the data, like, it can't just be a reactive position
Mhm.
where we look at reg numbers. Okay, but to your point, you said, like, who are those people? Were half of them my buyers? Were 25% of them? What happened 3 months after the show? Like, we're so quick to like run a report immediately after the show of like all the successes we had, but then we're moved on and we don't look at it again 6 months later to be like, okay, did any of those sales actually convert? Like,
Mhm.
what did we actually do with all of this information and the data and the things that we were told that happened at the event? Did people hate our booth? Did people love
Right.
the event? Was the coffee crappy? Okay, well, the coffee's always crappy. Like, that's irrelevant to what we're
Yeah.
actually trying to solve here. So I think the sophistication of the
Mhm.
conversation of events beyond, it was beautiful and we had 8,000 people are coming to be, and I would challenge organizers to like beef up their sponsorship and exhibit conversations. Like, saying these are the demographics of attendees is not really going to cut it in the next 5 years. Like, we need to know who is buying, how much are they buying, when are they registering, because I'm not going to start my marketing campaign for an event 2 months before the event if everyone's only registering 3 weeks ahead of time, because then I'm
Right.
doing free marketing for the event instead of just myself, which isn't necessarily a bad thing,
Yeah.
but is that really helping me and my attraction there? Maybe, maybe not. So I think the conversation around exhibit and sponsorship has to get a little more sophisticated than these like, pick your sponsorship, put your logo here. Like, slapping my logo on stuff isn't going to cut it anymore.
Yeah, it's like finessing the tools that are there to
Yeah.
actually make it functional for you to be able to sift through that noise. Because to your point, who's gonna take weeks to learn how to read the data and the tools and then change it to manipulate it. Like nobody has the time or the resources to do that, and figuring out ways to
Exactly.
bring that together is going to help ultimately everybody in the end and keep the events world growing and still really super valuable as a whole too, because we have to adapt. And I think
For
there's
sure.
a lot of things in the events world that are tried and true. I'll put it that way, right? There are a lot of like tried and true things that, yeah, won't go away. Sure. You will always need some pipe and drape to separate
Of course.
rooms or whatever it is.
You should always put aisle carpet down in your exhibit hall. Nobody wants to walk on concrete.
No, they don't. And I bet you have a story of an event that didn't put that down because you
1,000%.
brought it up. Yeah. There's certain things that you need to have and want to have. But what is something that you would say would maybe be a radical forward thinking idea, some sort of installation, some sort of experience at an event? Or are you thinking more on the, the back end side of things that could be radical to really help events and make people want to come and come back and again over and over?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. I think a lot of event planners rely too heavily on post-event surveys, which we know get, fraction of people who
I've
actually
never
respond.
I've never done a post event survey. I delete those.
Right.
So like here, you're welcome for the data. Like nobody
Right.
you're only doing that if you hated it most of the time, right?
Generally. You get the
And
extremes, or you get I remember having a conversation with a planner friend of mine, and she was like, well, based on the post-event survey, and I was like, how many people filled out the post-event survey? She was like, well, we got a 5% response rate. I was like, okay, so you made decisions about the future of your event based on 5% of your attendees, and this was an association, and I said, okay, so of the 5% that responded, how many were actually members of your association and not exhibitors or sponsors or staff or whatever? And she was like, somewhere around like 1.5%. I was like, so you made decisions about the future of your event based on a post-event survey that 1.5% of your members responded to. She was like, well, my gut instinct. And I was like, I also understand laying in your gut instinct. Like, we're all professionals. We have that. Like, instinctively, like what should happen.
Mhm.
But I was like, if we put our data hat on, you made decisions on less than like 1% of your target audience. And I was like, but you probably have thousands of other data points that could tell the story that would answer your gut instinct beyond a post-event survey.
Mm.
So some radical thinking on the back end is like expand what kind of data you're looking at, right? Like don't
Mhm.
just rely on the post-event survey. That only tells part of the story. Look at registration, look at marketing, who came. Like you have to dig a little deeper to tell a better story and to
Yeah.
make better informed decisions. And we need to do it more proactively as opposed to reactively. So if we're looking at this in real time and we know our target audience is A, but only B type of audience is registering, well, maybe it's time to go back to marketing and be like, we're behind on registration in our key market. How do we beef that up? Like, where are we missing the dots? Like, we need to be looking at it not just post event. And some radical stuff in event planning in real time. Like, why aren't we
Mhm.
doing more stuff outside? Like
Yeah.
one of the people love natural light. If we're talking wellness and all of
Oh,
this, like that is such a part of daily life now. It's not this like just do yoga at 6 o'clock in the morning and check the
no.
wellness box. Like it doesn't do it anymore. Why? Another planner friend, I was blown away that she had walking sessions as part of her agenda. Now, granted, this wasn't necessarily a scalable thing. This was like a smaller, like
Yeah.
150 person conference, and they were at a resort that had walking paths. But she was like, they literally walked and talked. And it was like a tour guide that like had the microphone and the little
Amazing.
like speaker, and they did the whole session outside. And like one of the clients I was working with, the agency I work with, I was like, why don't you guys just do a picnic? Like, why does it have to be a dinner? Like, can we
Yeah.
just do a picnic in this park that's across the street from the convention center? Like, invite people to a picnic. Why does it have to be a dinner? Bring a chef, have some charcuterie boards and wine. Like, I'll sit on a picnic bench and it can be branded. It can be beautiful. Like, let's just rent the park for a couple hours and do a picnic.
Mhm.
Like, it doesn't, like, so many people think innovation has to be the new Facebook, or it has to be ChatGPT. It has to be this like huge thing. Like, that's not innovation. Innovation is doing a session in a park as a picnic, as opposed to in a meeting room with no windows.
Yeah, especially when it's relevant and it makes sense, when it's something about health, wellness, or even not. If you're in a beautiful location and the whole
Right.
reason you picked this beautiful city to host your meeting in is because your attendees want to be there and they want to be outside and experiencing it, not locked inside a convention center, then like make as much of it as you can.
We just did a program at a resort, and we were only outside for receptions and dinners. Like, all day long, we were inside a meeting room. And I was like, it's beautiful. The sun is shining. Like, leisure is a thing. And then
Yeah.
we like send people to these amazing destinations, be like, but don't ever leave the hotel. You have to stay here. You're trapped for all my content till the end of time. Like, come on, give me a break. Like, let's do some stuff outside. And like, to me, that's innovation. Like, just doing a little thing different. You don't have to blow up the whole meeting. Do
Mhm.
one activation different. Maybe do a speed dating, networking type of thing. Like, just tweak one thing. Give people something exciting to look forward to instead of the rinse and repeat. I mean, that's why so many events are getting stale, and why all these side pop-up events are now happening in these like rooted markets. It's because people are just getting bored, myself
Yeah.
included. Like, I've yet to go to a conference this year. Conferences I've been going to for over a decade, like, was a lifer. And I was just like, yeah, I don't have it in me anymore. Like, I
Yeah.
can't sit in the room. I can't do the thing. I can't do it anymore.
And if you feel that way, that means all of your attendees feel that way.
Yeah.
They're all feeling the same thing. If they've been coming for 20 years, 5 years, 10 years, they're tired of it. They probably don't attend any of the sessions anymore. They go to maybe one or two
Yeah.
because they're over it, and they now have friends. They just want to go network and talk to them. And that, now what, and now you're trying to keep somebody coming back just for networking and to see their friends. Well, how the hell do you market that? And how do you convince them to
Agreed.
do that? You're creating more challenges. But on the flip side, like, this is where you are really valuable as a consultant, Megan, for anybody who does events, because all these things you're saying, they're like, yeah, I want to do this. Yeah, we want to change these things. But my staff has 25 jobs.
Mhm.
We have these sub meetings we have to manage. We're getting emails from the exhibitors. Like, we don't have the time, we don't have the capacity to like now implement change. So what do you
Correct.
advise for like the realistic implementation of some of these things?
I mean, sometimes you're too close to it. And a lot of meeting planners will
Mm.
stay in the same job for decades and decades. And they're just not at that point. Some of them I know now are like close to retirement age. And she's just like, man, not worth rocking the boat. Like, I want to do my event. I want my paycheck and I want to go home. And I'm like, okay, God bless you. Here for that. I'm
Totally.
at some point in my career, I will be the same. Like, just tell me what you want me to do. I'll do it. Cause like, I'm not interested in rocking the boat anymore. But at some point you do a disservice
Mhm.
to your members, your customers, by doing the same rinse and repeat. And when they get bored, they'll go find something else. They'll go find another event to do. So that's where, when you're sometimes too close to a product, I mean, you hear this in the tech startup world a lot. Like, when you're too close to a product, when you're like total tunnel vision into it, you
Mhm.
can't see the forest through the trees, as some people have said, right?
Yeah.
So for me to be able to come in and being like, what if we did the reception at 3 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock? Or what if we did a morning reception instead of an evening reception? What if the wellness wasn't just yoga at 6 o'clock in the morning? And what if you gave everyone 30 minutes to go walk outside and get some sunshine?
Mhm.
And we gave them Starbucks coffee and gift
Real
cards instead
Starbucks
of,
coffee.
like, we gave them gift cards to a local coffee shop instead
Yeah.
of convention center coffee. I'm totally going to get like blasted by all the convention center people, but like taking food and
Well,
beverage away from them.
okay.
But like,
Listen, they know their coffee is bad.
they do.
They are just in denial. It's just part of their routine. They can't see the forest through the trees, Megan, and you're
It's
just
true.
pointing out the trees or the
It's true.
forest. I don't know, whatever. You're
Yeah.
pointing it out. That's all.
And I think that's my whole point is, I'm not as close to these events. I don't have the decades vested interest like some of the staff do. I also can come in and say, what if we just tweak something small? Like, I think that's the other thing where consulting sometimes gets a bad rap is, you bring in a consultant to blow it up, right? The office space.
Yeah.
Like, what is it you would
No.
say you would do here, right? Like, This is not a political statement, so please don't come at me, but like the narrative
No,
around Doge right now is like they're just firing everyone. Like, what are
right.
they even doing? And
What are the
I don't
5
know
things
if that
you've accomplished this week, Megan? I
right,
need an
like
email by Friday.
I don't know if it's working or not working. I'm not here to talk about that. But like that's just kind of my point. Like I'm not my consultancy approach is not like to blow up the whole thing. Like
No.
let's find 3 things, 4 things that we can do this year that are a little different, that push the boundary a little bit. That and just see how it goes. Like not everything's ever going to hit the mark. That's why science is called science. That's why you practice medicine because like nothing is guaranteed. And events are a science. Like if we tweak a little bit here, let's see what happens. If we tweak a little bit of that, let's see what happens. So that's where I come in because I'm not close to it. I'm not married. I don't have the sacred cows. I can look at things a little bit different. I just have this unique ability to be able to wear like a planner hat and a customer hat and a partner hat. Like, what would exhibitors feel about this? Like, what would the customer feel about it? How would my members? How does my board? Like, I just have a unique ability to see all the different sides of it to then sort of marry, okay, well, this is what they're going to love about it. That's what this is how we frame the conversation to get it approved or the budget. And we don't have to blow up the whole event. We just have to tweak a little bit to keep it interesting so that people want to keep coming back and be like, I wonder what they're going to do next time.
That's it. You said it right there. You want people to leave going, ooh, I wonder what they're going to do next time.
Right.
That's what you want. That's what you want. You want to keep, that's how you keep that excitement and that momentum going and people coming back. And same thing with the podcast. Like who's coming back? Oh my gosh, who's going to come on next week and tell me some crazy story or give me this great piece of nugget advice that I didn't think about from a different part of this industry that I work in. I mean, to your point where you started at the beginning of this conversation is like, you look at all different places. You look at business holistically and you're not just looking at the events world because you're right. Like we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's no reinventing the wheel. It's all already in existence. It's just a matter of how you take an idea from something else and leverage it into your event and making sure that it's applicable. What's the one thing you're hearing the most or like the most popular thing that people want to do now? What's the like hot ticket thing people want aside from the event-led growth, which we've talked about? And that's obviously very prominent in conversations now. Is there anything that either planners or organizers are really like, we really want to do this, or this is where the events are going? What are you seeing?
Well, cost is kind of crazy. So God bless the tier 2 markets. They're going to be going hotcakes over the next couple of years just because, sorry to say, but San Francisco, Philly, Boston, Atlanta, you're so expensive. Not everybody can afford it, right? Like $150 for a gallon of coffee. Just, it's not sustainable, especially AV costs. I mean, it's through the roof. So I think smaller, unique venues, like why do we have to do it at a hotel? Why do we have to do it at a convention center? What about a performing arts center or a unique wedding venue that can be leveraged for corporate? You know, like I think people are getting creative when costs have to come into play and like, why does it have to be a hotel? Why does it have to be a convention center? So if you have a unique space, like bump that conversation up because I think people are looking for them. They want different, right? If I'm going to ask someone to leave their house, if I'm going to ask them to leave and travel and deal with all the headache that comes with traveling and childcare, pet care, whatever it is you have to do at home to leave, to go, I don't want to sit in a dark room and listen to someone. Like that's what virtual events are for. Like I can just sit at home and listen to it. I can sit at home and listen to your podcast about it. If I'm going to leave my house, I really do want an experience, make it worth my time. And going to a convention center, sit in a room sometimes doesn't check the box. So obviously, if you're CES and you have 150,000 people coming, a unique space is not going to happen. But that's why Delta their whole keynote was at the Sphere. Now, my God, that was a crazy expense cost, but like it was worth the money for them to do that. Like they really got to showcase like what they're doing. That was the biggest thing I saw coming out of CES was all the events that were happening at the Sphere, not what happened at the convention center because it's a unique new space. So I think that's coming out. And the one thing I'm already over that I see happening at all the events is like drone shows. Like, yeah, they're super cool, but like I don't want to see another drone show.
No.
I'm kind of over them already. Like it's time to think of something new. Like,
Do you get to vent? Do you get event of the week? I'm going to throw an audible and pull in a segment from the event about it side of this podcast. What does Megan Martin want to vent about in the event space this week? Besides drones, give me something else that you just are like
oh my
over.
gosh. I'm over planners complaining about being called party planners, but doing nothing to change the narrative. Like, if you don't want to be a party planner, stop talking about the food and beverage experience. If you don't want to be a party planner, stop talking about how many people came to your event. Talk about what they did. Talk about the uniqueness of it, like how you changed the format or did that. Like, if you don't want to be a party planner, stop talking about party stuff.
Oh, she told you all.
I mean,
no, it's the truth. It's the truth. Like, yeah, you can't just sit and complain and be complacent if you want something to be different. And it's so interesting. You had said, you're planners, right? And you want everything to be perfect. And you guys work years to make a plan for an event. Sometimes, multiple years, etc. You're planning for the 40th anniversary 3 years from now, right? You're planning. But nothing ever goes to the plan, especially in the event space.
Yeah.
And it's like, when do we just like relax and accept that in the events world and planners? Because I've seen so many, they get one text from one big sponsor who's upset and it ruins their whole day and the show for them because they've worked so hard and they want everything to be perfect, but like the planners, like the booth didn't have carpet or whatever, right? And and they're complaining and they're so worried because they're the big money maker and that's how the event runs. But like, how do we get out of that cycle in the planning space?
That goes, so we have to talk about the stuff that goes wrong more, because I think outside of our industry, people don't know that because we're so buttoned up and we want everything to be perfect and we want it. But there's so many factors. Like, I'm the meeting planner. I'm not laying carpet. I'm not installing the lights. I'm not setting up microphones. I'm not putting out the food. I'm not brewing shitty coffee in the back and then running out of it. Like, there's so many people that impact an event that I am only the orchestrator. Mm-hmm. I'm not playing all the instruments in the band. I'm just the conductor. And we don't talk about that enough. And so it's really hard for people to give us grace and empathy unless you've actually seen how the sausage is made. Mm-hmm. But we don't ever let people see that. And so the exhibitors can't have empathy, but we also have to have empathy for them. The person who's texting me saying, where's my carpet? Where's my sign? Where's this? How come I don't have anything? Probably have a CEO who's completely out of touch on them, or a CMO being like, why isn't this already here? Like, I go on stage in 10 minutes. Where's my microphone? I told you I wanted to test. Like, there's so many people that trickle down the stress. And I always just want to be like, don't look at the man behind the curtain. It's fine. We've got it. The building might be burning down, but it's cool. We're going to figure it out. Like, when you present with a level of confidence, like whether internally I'm destroyed and like on the verge of tears and like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to me right now. Everything is falling down. Be like, it's no problem. Let me get on it. Like, people really just want to know you're going to try to fix it at the end of the day. And I think that's the air of confidence we have to show when things go wrong, and just not let it get to us. I think a lot of that comes with experience too. Like, trust me, I lose my shit all the time at events because at some point you hit your breaking point. Yeah. But also then if you acknowledge that breaking point, being like, man, I was really short with you. I'm sorry. Like, that was just a tough moment and I did not show up well. We have to just own it, and also give other people grace when they're screaming and yelling at you. Like, it's not just about the sign, right? Like, it's not just about the spaghetti. It's not just about whatever. There's so much stress that come to this because events are finite moments. Like, that's why you end up with bridezillas, because you got 4 hours to get it right and you don't get another shot. Like, you got 4 hours to do the wedding. And that's why I love conferences. Like, I joke, one of my good friends is a very high-end wedding planner in Atlanta. I used to moonlight and kind of help her out on the weekends. And it was so good for me because I remembered why I love business events and not social events, because I got 5 days to get it right. So we can completely shit the bed on the first day, right? If everything goes wrong, we can figure it out in the moment. But then I got 3 more days to wow you. And you're going to remember how you left, not how you showed up. And so that's why I love business events and why I don't stress too hard when stuff goes wrong, unless it's the last day. And really, by the end of the last day, I'm just like, fuck it, who cares? Like, let it happen.
We
Like, why
did our
do
best.
it doesn't matter anyway. But like, if I'm can get it right by the end and people are leaving being like, man, 90% of that event was great, and then they have a funny story to tell, like, I still win. Where like social events and weddings, you got 3 hours. Like, the bride's only walking down the aisle one time.
Yeah,
Like,
you
I might
can't
have three
redo it.
keynote speakers and like I can have them redo it later. Like, there's, a million ways I can recover business events, but not so much in social. And I think planners in the business world have to remember that. Like, you can always save it later. And like, if the event goes horrible, like, also lean into the awkward weirdness of it. Like, we're all humans. Like, don't have to be so polished and button up. And if something happens, like, do a post-event webinar to make it up to the sponsor. Like, give them something exclusive. Like, there's always ways to recover. And we just, again, have to be creative and think a little bit different and be like, okay, we totally missed the signage. You weren't there. Let's give you a webinar, or let's give you extra coverage at a future event, or we'll do a private meet and greet dinner with such and such, to make up for it. Like, there's always ways to recover, and there's so much grace. We have to give each other more grace in this space. Like, stuff goes wrong, we just got to figure it out. Like, if you want to be like Matthew McConaughey, like, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right, we're gonna figure it out.
We are going to figure it out. You and everybody is, because at the end of the day, you have no choice but to figure it out at a live event, in the event space. And you guys always do. Everyone always does in some capacity. And that's what I think is really beautiful about this podcast and the way you have set it up, with being able to vent about things, but then also having this separate, bonus post-show content that is giving people the space to air the grievances, to talk about what went wrong at their event, and be able to talk to a fellow person like you, Megan, who understands it and can find the silver lining in it or how to improve from it. And I think this is going to be a really safe, incredible, fun, and funny space for people to really feel seen and heard, and hopefully really inspire them to want to do things differently and learn from mistakes and get out of that rut and be able to pull back and see the big picture and find what's going to work for them in their events. And that's like the whole point of what you're doing. Everything you've said over this whole conversation is the whole point of this podcast.
For sure. Like, I've been the planner doing 16,000 person conferences. I've been the exhibitor. I've been the sponsor. I've been the speaker. Like, there's not a side of this industry I haven't personally done myself. So I feel like, humble brag, I'm super bad about like bragging on myself, but like, I really can relate and empathize with all the conversations. And that's why I want to talk to all the people. We're going to talk to business owners. We're going to talk to marketers. We're going to talk to event planners. We're going to talk to booth builders. We're going to talk to the AV people, all of it, because it takes all those people to do it right. And we all have to give more grace and space. And the only way we get inventive and creative and keep it fresh, because events are going to be more and more popular over the next few years, we have to keep it exciting. But that means we also have to understand each other a little bit more, and where we can push the boundaries and where we can't. Like, solving the bad coffee at convention centers, that might take a decade to solve. But designing a new event booth with an activation that doesn't break the bank and wows everybody, that could happen tomorrow. We just have to have the right conversations to get creative and get out of our own boxes to be able to have that conversation.
Yeah, that conversation and the conversation about owning the mistakes. I think there's such a missed opportunity. We talked about this in the Event About It podcast, how you had asked if I would rather go viral for something good or something bad, like a flop or a fail, right? It's owning those fails. Yeah. And why not turn your own event fail into a meme that you put out on your Twitter wall, X, Bluebird, whatever it's called today, right? Like whatever wall you have now, okay, your media wall, and just own it, right? Yeah. Own it, make it funny, call it out. Pretending like something didn't happen doesn't make it go away, but them seeing you own things. There's just so much more that could be done with that, you know, and not just with, you know, post show giving us, you know, an exclusive event to the board members or whatever it is. Yeah, all those things matter too. But even to just like the public facing side of things to attendees, being able to call it out to them and just figure out a way to make a joke about it. Or if you run out of their favorite, you know, pretzels are supposed to be on the exhibit floor for this session and the venue didn't do them, well, at breakfast the next morning, show up with all the pretzels and they're going to be like, what? They did what? Oh my God, the pretzels are here. Did you know? And then it goes, did you go to breakfast? Did you see the pretzels at breakfast? Because last night, oh my God, it was so cool. You know, there's so much room for that in so 100%. Many ways.
Agreed.
Anyway, tell everybody where they can find Event About It podcast. Well, I know where they can because I did it, but everybody can listen to the Event About It podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe, follow, share with a fellow event planner or someone who attends a lot of events. And bonus content lives on the Event About It podcast.com website. Megan, tell us more what they can get there.
For sure. So the Squared Squad is our gated club of conversations with dynamic dialogues with our guests. So you get early access to the podcast, early access to the dynamic dialogues that will come out, like these we're having right now. You also can see the guest lineup. So you'll be able to see who's coming up and submit questions. So we'll cover those questions with the guests on the recording. So Squared Squad members will get to see that. And we're going to do all kinds of bonus content, not just dynamic dialogue. I attend a lot of events. I go to a lot of events. Might even do my own like Vent of the Week segments of like, God, guys, why are we still doing this? I did one the other week on my Instagram, which you can also find us on Event About It on Instagram. And M Squared Dynamics is my business consulting where we'll be posting lots of fun tips about data analytics things. But I'm speaking at a conference coming up and attending a conference, and I was picking sessions on a Microsoft form.
A what form?
A Microsoft form. Like that was on the website, and I picked all my sessions, and I had to like re-enter all my information and all this. And I'm just like, it's 2025. I know the tech exists to not do this. Like, why are we still doing this? So we're going to have all kinds of things like that. And again, we're just going to have some fun. It's edutainment, as I'm calling it, because we're having deep conversations, but we're also just going to have some fun and share stories and relate. And that's what you can find on the Squared Squad content on eventaboutitpodcast.com.